If you don't know who Tim Wells is, get your head out from underneath a rock and check this out. Tim Wells is one of the coolest hunters on the planet, and I've been watching his YouTube videos for over a decade. And he's one of the people that inspired me to become who I am, which is somebody who builds bows and hunts in order to feed my family. I like to make bows and then give them away to people. Most of the time my YouTube subscribers, but I thought it would be incredible to send one to one of the people who inspired me to start this journey in the first place. So I sent him an email. The only problem is I haven't made the bow yet. So my goal is to try and build Tim a bow that is unique to him and send it to him and have it delivered before he gets back from his hunting trip in Mexico. Let's get started. In Tim's biography on his website, it talks about how he grew up on a farm in Illinois and he would practice shooting his bow by shooting the walnuts out of the tree in his backyard. So it felt super fitting to make him a bow out of a walnut tree that I cut down on my last trip to the Midwest. In my opinion, walnut is a super underrated bow wood. It's extremely tension strong, it's easy to work with, and the color transition between the heartwood and the sapwood is what walnut is famous for. This cambium's kind of interesting. So when you take the bark off, what's underneath the bark is called the cambium, and it's actually like bright green, almost neon green. But it's turning brown as it oxidizes with the air, kind of like an apple that you leave out on the counter. But I'm glad that that's happening because right now I'm having a really hard time telling between the bright green cambium and the white wood, and I need to be super duper careful that I don't damage the wood that's underneath the cambium. So when it turns brown, it'll be much easier to see the difference, and I'll take it off then. But for now, I'm gonna draw my design. Tim Wells is a big dude. He's 6'2", and he looks, I mean, he's gotta be really strong because he's spearing moose with a hand-thrown spear. So I bet that 50, 60 pounds is absolutely no problem for him, even with a traditional bow with no let off. This log is 66.5 inches long. I'm going to use the entirety of its length, and I'm going to do about a 2-inch wide limb. That way there's plenty of wood to spread out all of those forces that we're putting on the bow. I'm going to narrow the tips, and I'll start that taper at about 10 inches. There you can see the design where it narrows for the handle, and then it also narrows for the tips down to 1/2 inch. Now that I've got this drawn out, I just need to remove material from the sides until we get this bow to shape. Now that I've got this bow pretty much shaped out from the front anyway, all I need to do now is thin down the limbs so that they bend. My favorite part about working with this wood is the chocolatey heartwood. So instead of thinning it down with a draw knife and reducing the belly wood into ribbons, I actually want to save chunks of it in case I want to use it later in the bow. So I'm going to grab a saw and a chisel. This is a young walnut tree. As the trees get older, the heartwood becomes a bigger percentage of the log. So there won't be any of this dark chocolatey wood in the actual working limb of the bow, and that's okay because the sapwood is more flexible anyway. That's super nice. I'll definitely keep that. I actually cut this tree down in December of last year. Right now it's February. So it's had about 2 months of drying time, which is not even close to enough. This piece of wood is still very, very wet. So I'm trying to get it down to what I would call a bow blank, which is a bow-shaped object that's not quite bending. And then I'm going to have to force dry it using heat. I need to keep this full width, the handle, and then taper this guy right here. So it's going to look something like that. So far we've gone from standing tree to bow-shaped object that does not bend and is also way too wet to start bending. so we're gonna have to force dry it next. I'm gonna dig a trench here on the beach and then build a fire in it and let it simmer down into coals, and then set my bow over the coals to really heat up and force as much moisture out of it tonight as possible. And then tomorrow I'm hoping that it'll be dry enough to start the tillering process. This is a back set form, which will just hold the bow kind of curling away from the archer, which gives it more potential energy when you draw the string back. So I'm just gonna clamp my bow to this guy, and then when those burn down to coals, I'll set this over the coals, and then hopefully in a few hours this will be a lot drier. I'm just feeling for a nice even heat, and any spots that are too hot or where this is lower, I just add sand on top of it to cool it back down. That's perfect. Now we wait. It's taken many fires and many days to actually get this completely dry, but I wanted to make sure that it would stop losing weight and be as dry as possible before I actually sent it to Tim. So I've got this little food scale, and I'm just weighing it after every fire. And for a while it was losing like 0.2 ounces per fire, and then it slowed down to 1, and then maybe 1 every other fire. And now I've got it to the point where it's not losing weight at all, no matter how hot I get it. I'm just gonna let it rest for a couple days, but while I do that, I'm gonna mix up this solution. One of the cool things about walnut is it's super high in tannins, so it should react really well with a vinegar and steel wool solution. It's actually called ebonizing the wood, and it's a much deeper penetrating stain than an actual wood stain, and it only works with certain types of woods, and walnut is one of the best ones to do it with, so I thought it would be something sweet to try with this bow to make it really unique. I've been saving this moose for a really long time, and I hate to cut it up, but I also am not going to display this one, so I think it's worth it. I'm going to take a point off and cut it in half for the tip overlays, the little pieces that go on the ends of the tips that protect the wood from the string. So I'm going to pick the pointiest point and try and split it down the middle and then cut it off. This one looks pretty good right here. There we go. Those will be nice. I flattened the tips of the bow so that the antler pieces would sit flush, and I glued them down with wood glue. Now it's the next day and they're dry, so I can shape the points with this rasp and a chainsaw file so that the string can sit nice on these antlers. I find that the antler tips, they look cool, and they're also a lot more durable than if I just put string grooves in the wood of the bow itself. The next thing I need to do is thin down the cambium to make kind of a camo pattern that will react really nice with the vinegar solution. And then we need to actually teach this bow how to bend. This thing looks like a bow, but I can't just draw it back and shoot it now. I need to actually teach it how to bend. So my goal for the next couple of hours is to get this thing bending all the way back to 28 inches and shoot it for the very first time. While I do that, Adigan's gonna jump. So I've been floor tillering, which is just when you push against something solid and watch it bend. And it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to put a string on it and just see what things are looking like. It's a pretty low string. Oh, and it stretched. Okay, that's 10 inches. It looks to me like this limb is bending pretty nice right here through the center. And then this one is pretty straight except for down here by the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark with my pencil right in here. But let's just double check. I don't think anything's going to break if I go back to 15. Take a step back and look again. So I think I really need to move material from here to here, and maybe again right in there. This limb looks pretty good for now. I'm just going to remove those pencil lines and then see what I think. For the rest of the bow build, I should just be using card scrapers because I'm going to be taking very little amounts of wood at a time. Alright, let's check again. I'm going to tighten the string up a little bit and then put it back on the jig and see. Not too bad. Limbs look roughly even. I'm not offended by how that looks so far. So I'm going to try and pull it back with this little fishing scale and see how much we're pulling. So down to 15, about 20 pounds. Okay, closing in on 30 pounds at 18 inches. That's on track for perfect hunting bow weight. Let's see how that looks. Honestly, really good so far. Looking good so far at 18. This one's flattening out a little bit down here. Jump, 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 jump. One of the things I respect the most about Tim Wells is that he was able to get his daughter to appreciate the outdoors as much as he does. And on top of all of the crazy things he's done in the woods with hunting with spears and blowguns and bows and arrows, I think that that's probably the most aspirational thing and the thing that I would want to emulate the most is just to share my love and enthusiasm for hunting and nature as much as he did. Now this isn't perfectly straight up and down, the jig itself, but what I've done is I've strapped it to a tree so that I can pull with a rope and stand back farther. Pulling to these little nails is alright, especially in the early stages, but once I'm going back close to my draw length, I like to be able to stand back and really see what's going on. I've also got this scale in my hand pulling on the rope, so let's see. That's 20 inches right there. 20 inches. 35 pounds. Looking pretty good. Let's do 24 inches. 40 pounds, 42 pounds. Let's go 26. Pretty awesome. I could see the left limb might want to bend a little bit more, but we're right in that 50-pound range. I'm going to take about 20 scrapes off of this left limb as a whole. "28 inches. 28 inches. 54 pounds now. We lost 1 pound while we did that. One more time to 28. Hold it there. Let's find a target to shoot at. Okay, first shot. This is 54 pounds at 28 inches. A walnut longbow with a slight bit of back set. I'm just going to shoot at a tree over there. Wow. That shoots amazing. I really like that. Now I've got this thing shooting and it feels awesome. There are just a couple more things to do to make it a little bit more pretty. And then we need to do a shooting montage and make sure that this thing is deadly before we give it to Tim Wells. Before I put the stain on the back, I'm just gonna finish up the shape of the handle and just polish everything that I think could look a little bit cleaner and sand it to a super fine grit. Right away it's turning the cambium super dark. It's not doing so much to the wood, not yet anyway. Might take a couple hours even to react completely. This looks insane. It's completely done reacting now. It looks super cool. I've got some birch bark that I saved that I'm gonna do a nice handle wrap with. So I wrapped the handle in birch bark. The stain ended up being like a really nice dark gray color, almost a little bit purpley where the cambium was. The moose antler tip overlays are like a nice contrast with the dark wood, and the tiller on this bow, the bend just looks incredible, and this thing shoots super great. But before I send it to him, I'd like to send at least 100 shots through it just to make sure that everything's functioning properly and it's as good of a bow and that I really trust it before I give it to him. One of my favorite videos of Tim Wells is him shooting birds out of the sky with a bow and arrow. So I should definitely be able to hit this volleyball. The hard part, well, I don't know if this is the hard part, or just that I'm bad at sports, but I have to throw it and then draw the bow back and then shoot it before it lands. So I'm gonna practice. I'm gonna throw it, draw the bow. Throw it, draw the bow. Okay, I can do that. Oh, just under it. This is totally possible. I hit it just on the edge. Yes! Yes! Cool. I'm super pumped with how this bow turned out. It shoots great. I think 55 pounds, 54 pounds is a perfect hunting weight for almost any animal in North America. And if anybody can get the job done with a bow like this, I know it's Tim. I don't know that I'll hear back from Tim Wells. He's super famous, super busy guy. So I'm actually gonna post this video before he even gets it, and I'm gonna send him an email when the shipping tracking information says that the bow's arrived, and that way he can see all of the things that I did to make this bow special and unique for him. But if I hear back from him, I'll be sure to let you guys know in the next video. I made a bow for another one of my, I guess, YouTube heroes, Kendall Gray, and he actually used it and went hunting with it and posted a video, which I thought was incredible. So here's a link to that video right here. And if you're new to the channel because of Kendall Gray, welcome. I'm super happy that I'm able to share my enthusiasm with bow making and longbows and recurves. This is something that humans have been doing for over 75,000 years. Archery is one of the coolest and most fulfilling things that I've ever experienced. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.